Okay, guys, I may or may not have just gone live for like 5 minutes, and it wasn't even live. That's okay. My name is Tanya Johnson. I am the founder of Helping Hearts Homeschool. And if y'all, well, I guess everyone on here follows me because you're on Instagram. So, duh, right? If you don't know what I do, though, I help parents and I help grandparents navigate the joy and the chaos of homeschooling, because let's be honest, it's not all rainbows, unicorn, sunshine, but it is a lot of fun. So if you're watching on Instagram, I do want to point out a couple things. If you want to check out my stories, I share daily tips and tricks of homeschooling. I also share like a behind the scenes look of homeschooling, because again, I want to be real and raw with you guys. Homeschooling is not what the majority of homeschool bloggers and mommy bloggers and whatever put out on social media. It is rather messy and not always organized. And then also, if you want to see how I use Instagram and Facebook to completely pay for my homeschool, that's something you also want to be checking out my stories. And then if you're looking for specific subjects, maybe you're looking how to teach reading better, make math more fun, science experiments, all that stuff, check out the highlight tabs up at the top of my Instagram. And each tab is a different subject. You'll be able to see all of those. And then I think that's it. Let me make sure. Oh, if you want to check the link in my bio, if you're looking for like more in-depth curriculum options, or maybe you don't know your child's your learning style, or you don't know your teaching style, that would be something you'd be interested in. And then if you're on YouTube and you're watching this, because I will have this uploaded, and any of that sounds intriguing to you, head over to my Facebook or my Instagram. I'm sorry, it'll be linked in the description box. And you can check all that out. And like I said, as well as how I learned how to use social media to pay for my homeschool when I only had 89 followers. So you don't have to have a large platform to do what I do as far as bringing in money from social media. Now, without further ado, let me jump into this video. So I have my coffee in my really awesome teacher cup. This is I'm a Teacher, What's Your Superpower? This is one of my favorite mugs. And we're going to be talking today about the 5 things that homeschool moms do. These are very common things that homeschool moms do that ruin marriages. Now, I don't want you to click out if you're not a homeschool mom, because this would also apply to working moms or even work from home moms. Let me take a sip of this. Guys, I talk really fast. I'm from New Mexico. We talk 1,000 words a minute, so I apologize if you needed me to repeat something, just tell me. Hi. Oh, okay. I'm excited for this. So do me a favor, if you're watching this on Instagram, drop me a 1 if you are a homeschool mom. Drop me a 2 if you're not. You just like watching my content. Either way is totally fine, but I'm always curious to see who watches this other than people that homeschool. So 5 common mistakes that homeschool moms make that ruin marriages. Number 1 is not prioritizing your husband or your marriage. Guys, let's be honest. If you're a homeschool mom, you are so much busier than the average non-homeschool mom. I'm not saying that to make anyone feel bad. It's just you're with your kids 24/7. Even if you do mops and play dates and all that stuff, it's very taxing. You're busy. You feel like you're on the go all the time. It can get very easy to kind of put our husband and our marriage on the back burner, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't do it. Now, again, replace that with work. If you are a working mom, it is very easy to place your husband and your marriage, and sometimes even your kids, on the back burner because of your career. And guys, I was there as well. I started out that before I became a homeschool mom. I was very much a career person. Career woman, whatever the fancy word for it is. Basically, I was a workaholic. That's what I was. I was always trying to get my next promotion, my next raise. I was just consumed with it. So 2 things I want you to make time for in this season of life. 1, I want you to pray for your husband and your marriage daily. Now, this is going to come down to a habit, and it's basically going to come down to time management. This is going to come down to, do you know your schedule? Do you tell your time where to go, or does your time tell you where to go? And I'm going to link, if you're on my YouTube, I'm going to link the time. I have a time management video as well that I'll link below. If you are on Instagram, I don't think I can do that. If you want to just swipe up And go ahead and comment time management. I can send you the video that way. It's just a YouTube video that I have recorded and put out. So I've been told that it is very helpful in managing a daily schedule. So pray for your husband and your marriage daily. And then the second thing is get a good biblical marriage book and read it. If you can, read it with your husband. I realize this is called the 5 mistakes homeschool moms make that ruin marriages, but usually when a marriage is ruined, it does take two. It's not 100% on one person. These are just things that we as homeschool moms can take control of. And one of those is praying for our spouse. One of those is constantly feeding our mind with biblical marriage principles and tips and tricks and all of the things. A couple of my favorite marriage books are The 5 Love Languages by, I believe, Chapman is the author. Love and Respect, I don't remember who that's by. I guess those are probably my top 2. Those would be the 2 I would suggest reading first. And then if your husband will read it with you, awesome. My husband was not a big reader in the beginning. Now he does read books with me, and we go through marriage books and child rearing books and finance books and whatever is on our mind. But in the beginning he wasn't, and that's okay. Again, this is something I'm talking to you guys. You can take control of these specific things. So, number 1 is not prioritizing your husband or your marriage. And one of the red flags for that, and I'm specifically going to talk about homeschooling, but again, you can insert your job in here as well. When your husband spontaneously decides to do something or take you somewhere or take the kids somewhere, and it interferes with the homeschool schedule, it interferes with maybe you planning out your next homeschool week, whatever it might be, you get irritated. That's a red flag that your homeschool is more important than your marriage and your husband and overall kind of your family, because your kids also see that. So that hurts them as well. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a conversation with them if they do it all the time and you're married to basically a 12-year-old in a 40-year-old or 30-year-old's body. There's a time and a place. But if it's every once in a while, like my husband's not a planner, but it gives him so much joy to every once in a while say, hey, we're going to go do this and I've planned this and I'm so excited. We're leaving in 5 minutes. Get Glory dressed. And sometimes I have been known to get caught like, really? Like, you couldn't have given me a heads up? And that literally just tells him without telling him, like, I don't value spending this time with you. I value this more than you. And that's never a good feeling. Like, I would hate to feel that. I know my husband doesn't like feeling it. Now, again, that rarely happens. If it was an every week thing, we would have a conversation, because then he would be jeopardizing our homeschool. But it's not an every week thing. Guys, that's the beauty of homeschooling. You get to be flexible. If he wants you to take off a random Friday to go do something, take off that Friday and go do something. It's not the end of the world, I promise. Number 2 is you are consumed by homeschooling. I'm talking you live, eat, and breathe homeschooling. Either you're looking at curriculum all the time, obviously you're planning, you're doing lesson plans, you're actually doing the curriculum with your kids, but you get so consumed with homeschooling, you don't take care of yourself. You, quote unquote, don't have time to exercise and eat right. You don't have time to work on your marriage. You don't have time to read books. You don't have time to do your devotions every day. So those are some things that, again, are red flags that you are absolutely consumed. It's not healthy with your homeschool. And again, you can insert whatever there. Now, I do understand also there are seasons of life. If you have a sick loved one or something like that, there are going to be seasons where you might be consumed with something. But in general, you should not be consumed with one area of your life. You should have a pretty good balance with everything. Let's see. And something you can do with that when it comes to not being consumed is make sure that you're scheduling and you're including your husband in that. So scheduling date nights, scheduling family date nights. You might schedule them. You might say, I don't have a lot of money, Tanya. We can't go, on a date every week, but you can schedule an movie night with your family. Go rent something for $2 from Redbox, $2, I don't remember. If you have a streaming service, which most people, regardless how broke they cry, have a streaming service. Let's just be honest with ourselves. You can stream something on your streaming service. You can do it as a family. You can do it just you and your husband after your child goes to bed. And I wouldn't do movie and TV time for every date because it's not really quality time, but it is something fun to do for a change. Get some popcorn out, whatever. You can do games, even if your husband's not a game person or you're not a game person. I promise you, sitting and playing games with your kids, it gives them just so many benefits that I literally can't even think of a lot off the top of my head. But you can Google it. Playing games with your kids gives you your kids a ton of benefits. So number 1 is not prioritizing your husband/your marriage. Number 2 is being all consumed with homeschooling. If you hear big booms outside, sorry, it's the 4th of July. If you're not in the U.S., it probably doesn't mean anything to you. If you're in the U.S., you know that your neighbors are randomly blowing things up all day, every day for like 5 days in a row. And I'm not complaining because I don't even mind it. But when I'm doing a video and there's like a big boom, I always get questions. So number 3 is complaining. Complaining is something that can definitely ruin a marriage. And there's two different categories under this. You're either complaining to your husband, meaning your husband walks through the door and you unload on him. How many of you have ever been guilty of that? I've been guilty of that. Again, if you're watching this even on YouTube, Facebook, whatever you're watching it on, let me know I'm not the only one in the comments. I guarantee someone out there is watching me and like, oh yeah, I've been guilty of that. Like, husband comes in, I hand him the kid, I'm like, bye. Like, she's done XYZ today. I need some mommy time. You can find me at Starbucks for 2 hours. But when that becomes a coping mechanism for you or it happens consistently, your husband doesn't want to come home anymore. That's not a good thing. Now, again, guys, I already said this, but I'm like 1,000%, I'm on board with this. I understand your job is hard. I understand it'd be much easier to send little Tommy to school and have 8 hours of the day where you don't have to deal with anything and you can just kind of go with the flow. I understand being with your kids 24/7, as magical as it sounds, and you don't complain about it. Sometimes it sucks. Sometimes you're like, can I just send them somewhere? Okay, so I'm not taking that lightly at all, but you got to remember, you chose to homeschool. Everything we do is a choice. Unless you live in a third world country somewhere, which might be the case, and that's fine, and there's not a school near you, you're choosing to homeschool. So you also have to choose not to let complaining overwhelm you or consume you or whatever word you want to throw in there. Now, I would say if you feel like your complaints are valid and you really don't want to homeschool, make sure you're having that conversation with your spouse. Like, we should be able to have that conversation with our spouse without fear of being judged or persecuted or whatever. Because remember, your spouse is not the one at home homeschooling your kids. You are. Now, he is out at work, probably, I'm assuming that's what most homeschool moms, their husbands are out working. They're not laying on the couch watching TV while you're, slaving away homeschooling your kids. They're usually working. So he also has a hard day and a lot of work. And I wouldn't say that one is harder than the other. You're both out working for X amount of days. Just have the conversation with him. The second thing is people complain to their spouse, but they complain about their spouse. They complain that their spouse doesn't do enough during their homeschool. They complain that their spouse doesn't help enough. Insert your foot here, basically. Insert foot into mouth, right? Because I've been there more than once. So you want to make sure that you have a realistic expectation because, again, he's been out working all day. And it does kind of come down to your specific circumstance as well. So I'll just share a little bit about ours. I work full-time, but I work from home. So I'm working, my husband's working, and then I'm also homeschooling. So he does work, he does help a little bit when it comes to like housework and that kind of stuff. Not so much the actual homeschooling, but also in our family dynamic, I'm the one who chose to homeschool. He was indifferent. He didn't mind if I put my daughter in Christian school. I'm the one who chose to homeschool. So again, I don't have a lot of right to complain or make him help with certain things when it was my choice. And it's my choice anytime I decide I don't want to do it. Now, I won't. I plan on homeschooling her all the way up through high school. I just don't mind taking on the extra work. But at the end of the day, it is my choice. Now, maybe you're looking at me like, okay, I'm a homeschool mom, but because my husband wants me to be a homeschool mom, I'd rather put my kids in school. Have the conversation with your husband. Let him know, like, hey, I really didn't want to do this. This is 100% you wanted me to do this, and I'm fine with that. We made the decision together, but I'd really appreciate it if you helped with X, Y, Z. Maybe you're both on the same page homeschooling, and you don't mind homeschooling. He's out working all day. You're at home homeschooling. He basically views that as that's your job, which it is. That's a job. 1,000% homeschooling is a job. And so he might be thinking like, okay, why would I help with that? She's not coming to work and helping me. Does that make sense? So you have to have that conversation and make sure that you guys understand the expectation you have of each other. Otherwise, you're going to have an expectation that's not realistic and you're going to be mad at him and he doesn't even know why. Okay? That's the reality of it. So number 4 is you're playing the comparison game, which turns into bitterness and ultimately turns into complaining, and we're right back at square one with a marriage that neither one of us are happy in. So I will say there is good comparison. You know if you're giving it 100%, right? Like, you know if you're doing your homeschooling to the best of your ability. Sometimes we have lazy seasons, and I think it is very beneficial to be honest with ourselves with that. If you know you're not doing a really good job and you see Susie Homemaker and she's killing it, don't let that defeat you, but instead you can let that encourage you of like, okay, I know I can do better in this area. Like, maybe I'm going to reach out to her and ask her, how do you manage your time better? Because that's honestly the biggest thing that I see with homeschool moms and stay-at-home moms both is lack of time management. And that's where I was when I started as well. But we're not talking about good comparison. We're going to talk about bad comparison, because usually when you're comparing to somebody, it causes you to hate your circumstances and hate your life. Now, I'm not saying you can't make your circumstances better. Sometimes, okay? Sometimes you can't. Now, if it comes to money, you can always make that better. That 100% is your choice. Now, you do have to understand, and I say that because I did it. Guys, I went from having no money to homeschool, wasn't going to homeschool, to homeschooling with all the bells and whistles because I decided to put the work in and make my social media pay for all of it. Now, I realize some of y'all, you want to do that until you realize the work that it takes, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. And that's fine. But you can change your circumstances if you want to with 99% of all that stuff. Same with time. Time is something that I didn't have a lot of. I had to make time, which means I had to make more money first, and then I could outsource things like housework and meal prep and that kind of stuff. But you also have to understand, if you decide to do that, and I have notes here so I make sure that I'm not getting off. If you decide to do that, you have to understand that it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of work. So, and eventually you can change your circumstances. So you still have to be content with what you have right now while you're working to make it a little bit easier. I won't even say better, because I'm not an advocate that more money gives you a better life, but I will say more money gives you more options and usually makes it a little easier, less stress-free on you. For example, I have a friend that homeschools and she does a phenomenal job, and she homeschools pretty much for free. She does everything on Pinterest. She prints all of her own stuff. So I guess not free. I should say very low cost. But I will say she puts in a lot of work that she doesn't get paid for, obviously, to print out all of those things and put them all together and do everything she needs to. She's stressed out a lot. She's stressed by a few different things. And when it comes to making it really fun and wanting to do field trips and stuff, she stresses on, she really has to get creative to find the money. On the other hand, I homeschool. I do not do it for free. We homeschool with all the bells and whistles because, again, social media. But it makes it a lot less stressful on me. If I want to do a field trip, I pack up and do a field trip. And usually we invite friends and we pay for them as well. So it does make it easier, if that makes sense. But I have another friend who she homeschools, and she does a lot of, I believe Charlotte Mason is the style. I know this, but I don't know it off the top of my head, where a lot of her homeschool revolves around gardening on their farm, and they love it. So part of it too is what fits your style, what fits your current budget, and if you're willing to expand your budget, what fits your personality. I don't like gardening, guys, like not even a little bit. You could not pay me money to do that style of homeschooling, but she loves it. So why not turn it into an awesome homeschool experience? When you see curriculum working for someone else, that's amazing. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you, even if you have the money to buy it. Because a lot of you on here, you spend a crap ton of money on your homeschool, just like I do. You buy your kids all the bells and whistles. But just because you see something working for someone else, just because you have the money to buy it, doesn't mean it's going to make your homeschool easier or happier either. So does that make sense? Like, there's a lot of different layers to it. Okay. And like I said, the biggest thing I see with moms when it comes to they compare and, oh, I can't do that because of XYZ, it always comes down to time management. So if you want my time management video, just swipe up, comment time management, and I'll get it to you. So there's number 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, number 5, last one is don't lose sight of the big picture. And this is a big one, guys. Homeschooling is a season. And again, remember, we're talking specifically about marriages right now. Homeschooling is a season. Homeschooling lasts for what, 18 to 20 years? Usually less than that, but I'm just going to make it a little bit more. 18 to 20 years. And I'm not saying your kids are out of your life at that point, but you're not actively homeschooling them. And most of us don't actively homeschool our kids by the time they hit high school. You've got tutors and stuff that you bring in because I don't know about y'all, but I'm not teaching my kid chemistry. She would fail epically because I don't know chemistry. There's a few things that we'll be hiring and bringing in tutors for. It's very important work. You are literally raising your child to do something amazing for God. And I know when people think of amazing, they think, oh, they're going to go start churches in Ghana, or they're going to do this. No, your child's version of amazing might be being a mom to a handful of kids and doing a phenomenal job at it. Because amazing doesn't necessarily mean amazing in the world's eyes. It means amazing in God's eyes. And I'm fully convinced that being a mom, especially if you're a homeschool mom and you're putting everything on the back burner to raise your child for God. I'm convinced that is the biggest thing, the best thing you can do as a mom. Is devote your life for 18 to 20 years. Devote your life to raising a tiny human being with all the characteristics that the Bible talks about a good woman or a good man should have. However, that's 18 to 20 years. You have to be diligent in those 18 to 20 years to make sure you have a thriving marriage when they're over. Because if not, what do you have left after your child is grown and gone to college or a trade school or whatever their path is, and married and has their own family, and your marriage has completely crumbled and is non-existent because you didn't work on it because you were so consumed with your child. So that's all I got for you today, but keep that big picture in mind. I hope this was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. If you have questions, let me know in the comments. I also do one-on-one Zooms if you need help with time management or with setting up your homeschool schedule, picking out curriculum, whatever. If you want prices for those packages, go ahead and let me know. And I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Sunday, rest of your 4th of July weekend. Bye, guys. Let's see if I can figure out how to turn this off. And I don't. Oh, there we go.